Well, hello, everyone who happens to be out there watching in wherever you're watching. This is AFK Away from Keyboard, the show where we just talk to cool people, talk about exciting things that are good in the game. Unfortunately, we couldn't find anybody cool today. We were able to, though, lock down a guy who is really cool in his own right, Mr. AJ Dimick, director of Utah eSports. And I managed to catch this fabulous AJ on a day right before we play each other. So how cool is that? AJ, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so you guys, you've been sending me these screenshots of really cool stuff that's happening on your campus. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are building right now?
Well, I mean, as you know, as college esports becomes more and more prominent and more schools jump in, we're all kind of engaging in what is now kind of a facility war and as we try to recruit these student athletes to our campus. And so, yeah, at the University of Utah, we are one of many. We are devoting space for a designated practice and training area that will include up to 40 computers, which will be the door to close, where our varsity team can go in and train and live there and hopefully study and do some good things and put their best foot forward and be as good as they can be.
Hopefully study. Have you discovered people getting excited when you start talking about space? Maybe you weren't excited about esports before, but then you start building the space and then you get people who weren't excited before in?
I think people hear the term institutional support and they wait for you to put your money where your mouth is on that and space and facilities and resources that are allocated just for this kind of purpose is that promise that we've all been talking about for so long. And so allocating actual space and actual facilities just for these student athletes and just for these kids is kind of what we've all been talking about for a long time now, and we're getting closer to realizing the realities of what those kind of things will be.
So, and what you're talking about is not just an underutilized classroom that slaps some black paint on the wall, some red paint on the wall, and call it good. You're talking about real new facilities.
Right. And today we have defined esports arenas and esports practice spaces as computer labs with an edgy paint job. And as we go forward with this and we understand how to train and how to serve these athletes better, we're getting better at understanding what college esports facilities are. And to me, that means a facility where they can train, where they can feel comfortable, where they have a door to close, where they can study, where they can perform well in the classroom. And we're getting closer to endemic kind of things that are just for esports and kind of get away from that model of a edgy, skinned out lab.
Well, you lose 2 points because we ran over the timeline right there, but I'll jump into the next question right away. And that is, both of us are engaged in this really cool invitational. It's an Overwatch Invitational, and it starts to lead to give maybe some credit to institutions that are providing, at least by TESPA's recommendations, more of the facilities for the students, more of the support. Can you talk about, I guess, just your impressions? Overwatch Invitational, 12 schools plus 4, 16 round robin.
I really like that we're entering a kind of a way where we're starting to define and flesh out what institutional support actually means and kind of encouraging those schools that maybe don't support their kids as much as some other schools do, a goal to shoot for of what the definition of varsity is, and kind of optimize the things that we can do to best serve athletes at all of these schools. But also what I really like is we are coming closer to formats, what represents kind of more mainstream sports formats that esports fans and mainstream sports fans of these schools can kind of recognize and get behind and start to understand. And I think this really does it.
I think that you're right. What are some more fraudulent ways that schools are supporting esports? Well,
the thing that concerns me that we're doing here is we're kind of having this conversation about what is esports on a campus, and is it a student life thing, or is it the next great championship collegiate sport? And the answer is that it's both. So when you invest in these spaces that kids can come play video games in, and maybe the school can generate a little revenue from, it's really important that any of those resources actually trickle down to actual students that pay their tuition, that pay for their things, so that they are best served, and they actually feel that institutional support more than just something that looks good in a brochure and is good marketing for a school.
So let's jump right into this. And these will be rapid fire questions. What do you think of schools that have a esports program that their regular student body can't access?
Well, I mean, there's this certain aspect of like in football where you can grow $1 million football facilities, $1 million basketball facilities, and those things only benefit maybe 60, 70 students that are on those teams. And esports, by its inception, is always different. This is always a grassroots effort. This is always a community thing. So as we invest in varsity spaces, absolutely, these are our teams and they represent our schools. These kids are proud to represent our schools, but it always has to trickle down back to that grassroots effort in that community. So that it always has to benefit not just the championship and competitive kids, but to the enthusiast kids and the guys that just want to come hang out and play video games. And if it doesn't realize that promise, then I don't know what we're really doing here.
Preach, brother, preach. I love it. Where's the NCAA in all of this?
Well, I mean, this is where I get in trouble here and piss off people on every side of the issue. To me, we're having a conversation where we're talking about college esports being the Wild West as it is now, completely unregulated. And so behind the scenes, you see some of the bad outcomes that occur when college esports is entirely unregulated. And so we all agree that we have to come together. We have to come together and create structures for this that make sense and do what I was talking about before. Make sure that the resources coming into this trickle down to the student athlete. But we don't want to take things away from kids, and so that's where the conversation is very robust about the NCAA. I come on the other side of this. I think nothing like the NCAA could bring resources this faster, and I don't want to like take away opportunities to bring fluoride scholarships to kids by the hundreds for protecting the streaming things for half a dozen kids in the country, because when you put in reality, there's not much more than that are making much more money than that to be able to go to the movies twice a month. And so,
we're starting to see. Yeah, with the absence, with the vacuum created, we're starting to see some of this this moral leadership, moral authority that often the NCAA gets credited with, starting to come through Riot, starting to come through Blizzard, even with NACE, trying to establish ways that we serve students and what qualifies as a student. Can you talk a little bit more about Riot and the RSAA's plan for kind of establishing a structure?
Yeah, and I think what they've done is really a positive influence, and initiatives coming out which are really targeted towards the issues in gaming. And we always talk about unfair criticisms of the gaming industry that get laughed at by its enemies, but there are some criticisms of the gaming industry and esports that are perfectly fair. And so I think with what Riot is doing, what RSA is doing, you'll see initiatives that create structures for safe spaces for youth esports to occur and high school esports to occur, for initiatives to get more women involved in gaming, because there's no good reason that more of them aren't involved with it. And so I think, yeah, you are seeing moral leadership, and you are seeing an organization come together to try to affect those positive changes in ways that are constructive, in ways that have oversight, and it can actually make a difference.
Are they going to become the NCAA real quick of esports?
I think they wouldn't mind becoming that, and I think if you see the structure that Riot and RSAA is setting up, you're seeing a plug-and-play model that colleges and people that aren't conversant in the esports space are beginning to understand the best and can see themselves taking a part in, and are making it easy for colleges to jump in, and conferences and those larger structures kind of jump in and be a part of, and kind of jump into the College League of Legends awesomeness.
Space, absolutely. Well, this has been AJ Dimick. He is amazing. Our teams play together today. Do you want to just maybe real quick with 10 seconds throw out who you think is going to take us all?
Oh, this is Utah all the way. And you know,
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I'm sorry, you're breaking up. We'll get your answer next week when we get together. Everybody's doing the U now. See you soon.